I came to the United States with $2.50 in cash and $1 million in hopes. Imagine giving someone your life savings, not because they forced you, not because they hacked you, but because you trusted them. Now, imagine finding out that the money was not invested, there was no business, like everything was a lie. Tonight, we'll be talking about one of the biggest scammers in history, whose name became the official word for a particular kind of financial scam. This wasn't some small gamble. This was the beginning of the original modern financial scam. The kind of fraud so famous that the type of scam is named after him, Charles Ponzi. I know most of us are familiar with the phrase Ponzi scheme, but I believe only few of us actually knows the true meaning and the origin. Charles Ponzi was just a broke guy who traveled from Italy to the United States in the early 90s with empty pockets and big dreams. Charles Ponzi was born Carlo Pietro Ponzi on March 3, 1882 in Lugo, Italy. He wasn't born rich and he did not arrive the United States with much either. When he landed in Boston in 1903, he had in his pocket only $2.50. And just like many other immigrants arriving at that time, he was full of dreams and eager to make a fortune. And just like many ambitious dreamers, he tried hard but struggled. For many years, he hopped between jobs, washing dishes, waiting tables, anything to get by. But trouble always seems to follow him. At a time, he became desperate to make it by all means. Before his big scam, he was already sent to prison in Canada for forging a check, served time in US prison for smuggling in immigrants across the border. So he was gradually getting familiar with the desperate life for street survivor. Most of his criminal escapades did not go well and often landed him in one trouble or the other. But he kept exploring new ways to become rich, even if it means collecting money from people by false pretense. In fact, he made the statement you heard at the beginning of the video. I came to the United States with $2.50 in cash and $1 million in hopes. So he continued struggling, he continued exploring, and one day he found an opportunity. And this is going to change his life forever. The International Reply Coupons, IRCS. The International Reply Coupons are a simple way to help someone in another country send you back a letter without having to spend their own money. Let me explain. Imagine you are in the US and you send a letter to someone in Japan and you want them to reply you, or maybe they don't have money to buy a stamp in their own country. So what do? You buy something called an International Reply Coupon from your local post office. You put the coupon in the envelope that you are sending to them. When the person in Japan receives your letter, they take the coupon to their post office and the post office will now exchange it for a stamp, and then they can reply your letter without having to spend their own money. So in simple terms, International Reply Coupons is like giving someone in another country a prepaid plan so they can reply your message, your letter. And this is where Ponzi found an opportunity. In 1999, he noticed something about this IRCS. He noticed that this coupon sells at different prices in different countries because of the currency differences. Ponzi saw a supposed profit opportunity. He could buy this coupon cheap and sell it or redeem it where it is more expensive. Most people did not understand this coupon. So when Ponzi explained it, it sounded legitimate and smart. He told them, if you give me your money, I will buy these coupons in bulk and redeem them here in profit. And in 45 days, you are getting 50% of your investment, and in 90 days, you are getting 100% of your investment. To most people at that time, this sounded like an opportunity of a lifetime. So when he thought he had found a money-making secret, people listened. But here is where it gets tricky. At the beginning, the plan was not completely fake. There was a small arbitrage opportunity with reply coupons, but the real profit is tiny and the logistics is nearly impossible. Ponzi promised a return he could never actually generate, and soon he was collecting more money than he could ever possibly use to buy coupons. So what did he do? He began using new investors' money to pay old investors. And that is the key point. There were no businesses, there were no investments, just one investor's money going into the hand of another investor. And that is the heart of Ponzi scheme. At first, the result looked amazing. People were getting their returns on time and as promised. And this made them to invite their friends, and their friends invited their own friends. And before you know it, thousands of people were lining up to invest. And in just few months, Ponzi collected more than $8 million, which in 1920 was an astronomical sum. Many millions in today's dollar. He did not hide his wealth either. He lived like a king. He owned big mansions, drove fancy cars, wore elegant clothes, and often hosted a meeting that made him appear like a financial genius. Everybody wanted a piece of him. But here is the catch. You can only keep paying old investors only if you continue getting new investors. This continued for a while, and so far so good. Everything was going well. New investors kept coming in and old investors were being paid and on time. But by the mid-1920s, reporters from Boston Post started questioning how Ponzi was able to sustainably generate profit. They did the math and everything was not adding up. And once the press started spreading doubt, something critical happened. Investors started panicking. They started requesting for their money, and before you know it, Ponzi's cash reserve vanished. He was not able to pay everyone, and his scheme collapsed. Ponzi was arrested on August 1920 and charged with 86 counts of mail fraud because he had used the postal system to deceive investors. He pleaded guilty and was sent to prison. He served several sentences on federal and state charges. After years behind bars in 1934, he was deported back to Italy. But his story did not end there. Even after his major schemes and prison time, Ponzi did not give up on scams. He tried other fraudulent ventures, including land and real estate scams in Florida during another big boom. At one point, he even tried to fake his own death to get away from justice, but was caught anyway. Eventually, he ended up in Brazil, living out his final years, working odd job, far from the grand life he once pretended to lead. He died on January 18th, 1949, poor and forgotten. Forgotten? No, his name is still there, but for the wrong reasons. Here is the amazing and cautionary truth. Charles Ponzi did not invent this kind of scams. People had used similar tricks before him. But his own scheme was so big, so public and so explosive that the name stuck forever. Today, every scam that pays returns using new investors' money is called a Ponzi scheme. Charles Ponzi's story is a powerful lesson. 1. Promises of extremely high returns often hides danger. 2. Greed and fear of missing out can blind people to obvious risks. 3. Schemes that rely on continuous new money are unstable. 4. Even smart people can fall for something that looks legitimate. Ponzi was not the smartest man of his time, but the mark his scam left on financial history is unforgettable. He began his life as an immigrant with nothing and ended as one of the most infamous con artists in the world. His name became the label for an entire category of scams. Tomorrow's scammers may use new technology, new platforms, and new tools, but the structure Ponzi used nearly a century ago and the lessons it offers still matters today. If you enjoyed this video and you want more videos like this, please do well to subscribe, turn on your notification, and until next time, my name is Thank God, and this is SY Times.